Welcome to True Crime Cases, where we delve into the darkest corners of human nature. Araya William, with her chestnut hair and piercing blue eyes, was the epitome of elegance and creativity. Born into a family of artists, her childhood home was filled with the scent of oil paints and the sight of canvases in various stages of completion. Araya had inherited her mother's talent and her father's determination, quickly making a name for herself as an exceptional landscape artist. Her works were known for their vibrant colors and the way they captured the soul of nature. Everett William, in contrast, came from a lineage of lawyers. The William family was renowned for their legal prowess, with generations serving as judges, attorneys, and legal scholars. Everett was no different. He excelled in law school, graduating top of his class, and quickly climbed the ranks at one of the most prestigious law firms in Belleville. His charm, good looks, and sharp mind made him a formidable attorney and a desirable husband. Araya and Everett met during their sophomore year of college. It was a classic case of opposite attracting. Araya's free-spirited nature complemented Everett's structured and disciplined approach to life. They fell in love quickly, their relationship blossoming amidst late-night study sessions, gallery openings, and summer road trips. After graduating, they married in a lavish ceremony that was the talk of Belleville. They settled into a beautiful Victorian home that Araya adored. She transformed it into a haven filled with art, music, and loved the house. Had a large garden where Araya often painted, drawing inspiration from the vibrant flowers and the changing seasons. Everett, on the other hand, was dedicated to his work, often spending long hours at the office. They had a son, Enzo, who became the center of Araya's world. Their life seemed perfect, at least on the surface. Araya's days were filled with painting, volunteering at the local art center, and taking care of Enzo. Everett's career continued to flourish, and he was soon made partner at his firm. They attended glamorous parties and charity events where they were often the center of attention. However, as the years went by, Araya noticed subtle changes. In Everett, he became more distant, often coming home late and leaving early in the morning. The once warm and affectionate man she married was now cold and preoccupied. Araya tried to ignore these changes, attributing them to the stress of his demanding job. However, the gnawing suspicion in the back of her mind grew stronger with each passing day. Romina Rowe entered their lives when Everett hired her as his personal secretary. Romina was stunning, with her dark cascading hair, sharp features, and an aura of confidence that turned heads. Wherever she went, she was efficient, intelligent, and seemed to understand Everett in a way that Araya no longer could. It wasn't long before Araya's suspicions turned towards Romina. One evening, Araya decided to confront Everett. She prepared a candle at dinner, hoping to reignite the spark in their relationship and to get him to open up. As they sat across from each other at the dining table, Araya poured her heart out, expressing her concerns and fears. Everett listened, but dismissed her worries, attributing his behavior to the pressures of his job. He assured her that there was nothing to worry about. But Araya wasn't convinced. Determined to uncover the truth, Araya hired a private investigator named Leonardo Wassa, seasoned professional with a reputation for discretion and thoroughness. Over the next few weeks, he followed Everett and Romina, documenting their interactions. The evidence he gathered was damning: late-night dinners, weekends away, and intimate encounters that left no room for doubt. Everett was having an affair with Romina. Araya felt a mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, and a deep sadness. She couldn't understand how Everett could do this to their family. But amidst her turmoil, she also felt a strange sense of relief. At least now she knew the truth, and she could decide what to do next. Armed with the evidence, Araya's initial devastation gave way to steely resolve. She decided to confront Romina, first hoping to gather more information before dealing with Everett. Araya arranged a meeting under the pretense of discussing a charity event that Everett's firm was sponsoring. Roman, unaware of Araya's true intentions, agreed to meet at a chic downtown cafe. Cafe was a cozy, intimate space with soft lighting and plush seating. Araya arrived early, choosing a secluded corner table where they could talk privately. Romina walked in a few minutes later, exuding confidence and poise as she approached the table. Araya felt a mixture of anger and curiosity. Romina greeted Araya warmly and commented on how beautiful the cafe was. Araya, hiding her true feelings, replied politely and steered the conversation towards Everett's. He mentioned how Everett had been spending a lot of time at the office and asked how he was handling the workload. Romina responded that Everett was incredibly dedicated and that the cases he was working on required a lot of his time and attention. Araya then leaned in and in a low voice told Romina that she knew about the affair. Romina's face paled, and she opened her mouth to speak, but Araya stopped her, saying she wasn't there to accuse or blame her. Araya just wanted to understand why it happened. Romina, with tears in her eyes, explained that it started a few years ago when Everett was going through a rough patch at work. They began spending more time together, and one thing led to another. As Romina spoke, Araya felt a strange sense of empathy. She could see the pain in Romina's eyes, a reflection of her own turmoil. By the end of the conversation, they had formed an unexpected connection. Araya was captivated by Romina's intelligence and charisma, while Romina found solace in Araya's understanding and compassion. In the weeks that followed, Araya and Romina continued to meet in secret. What had started as a confrontation evolved into a complex relationship. Their meetings became more frequent and their bond deepened. One evening, Romina invited Araya to her apartment, ostensibly to review some documents related to the charity event. The apartment was a stylish, modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a stunning view of the city. As they sat on the couch sipping wine and talking, the tension between them grew palpable. Romina set her glass down and looked into Araya's eyes, saying that she had developed feelings for her. S's heart raced. She had felt the same way but had been too afraid to admit it. She confessed that she felt the same way. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, and that night, they crossed the line from emotional connection to physical intimacy. The affair was intense, a whirlwind of stolen moments and secret rendezvous. Araya felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. But she was also plagued by guilt and fear. They would meet in secluded spots around the city, hidden corners of parks, out of the way cafes, and Romina's apartment, where they felt free from the prying eyes of the world. Their conversations ranged from deep philosophical discussions to light-hearted banter. They shared their hopes, dreams, and fears, forming a bond that went beyond physical attraction. However, Araya was acutely aware of the precariousness of their situation. She knew that if Everett found out, the consequences would be dire. Despite this, she couldn't bring herself to end the affair. Romina had become an essential part of her life, filling a void that she hadn't realized existed. Everett's suspicions grew as he noticed Araya's changed behavior. She was more distant, often lost in thought, and seemed to have a newfound sense of confidence. Everett's paranoia led him to install a hidden camera in Romina's apartments, suspecting that Araya might have discovered his affair and was plotting against him. When Everett reviewed the footage and saw his wife with Romina, his rage and sense of betrayal reached a boiling point. He felt emasculated and humiliated, convinced that both women had conspired against him. Everett began to meticulously plan his revenge, determined to regain control over his life. One stormy night, Everett invited Araya to his office under the pretense of wanting to discuss their relationship and find a way forward. Araya, hopeful for reconciliation, agreed. As she entered Everett's dimly lit office, she was struck by the cold boldness in his eyes. Everett told Araya to sit down, his voice devoid of emotion. Araya took a seat, her heart pounding. She started to speak, but Everett cut her off, slamming a folder of photographs on the desk. He said he knew everything and knew about her and Romina. Araya's eyes widened in shock as she looked at the incriminating photos. She pleaded with Everett to let her explain, but he was beyond reason. He lunged at Araya, his hands closing around her throat. Araya struggled, clawing at his hands, but Everett's grip was unrelenting. Her vision darkened, and within moments she was gone. Everett stood over Araya's lifeless body, his mind a whirlwind of rage and confusion. He knew he had to act quickly to cover his tracks. He staged the scene to make it look like a robbery gone wrong, ransacking the office and scattering papers everywhere. He then drove to Romina's apartment. His anger boiling over. Romina was startled to see Everett at her door. She asked what he was doing there, her voice trembling. Everett pushed past her, his eyes wild with fury. He accused her of ruining everything and seducing his wife, destroying his family. Romina backed away, fear gripping her heart, and begged Everett to listen to her and understand that it wasn't like that. But Everett was beyond listening. He lunged at Romina, but she managed to evade him, grabbing a heavy vase and smashing it over his head. Everett staggered momentarily, disoriented. Romina seized the opportunity and fled, running into the night with nothing but the clothes on her back. She ran through the rain-soaked streets, her mind racing with fear and confusion. She had to get as far away from Everett as possible. She knew that if he caught her, he would kill her. Romina reached the outskirts of town and found an old abandoned cabin. She slipped inside, Herbity, trembling with adrenaline and terror. The next morning, Enzo William found himself without a mother and soon without a father. Everett, attempting to cover his tracks, reported Araya missing and fabricated an alibi for himself. However, the police quickly uncovered inconsistencies in his story. Araya's body was discovered in Everett's office, and forensic evidence, along with Everett's erratic behavior, pointed to his guilt. He was arrested and later convicted of Araya's murder, sentenced to life in prison without parole. Romina, meanwhile, had vanished. Without a trace, her car was found abandoned at a rest stop miles away from Belleville. There were rumors that she'd fled the country, but no concrete evidence ever emerged. Some speculated she had started a new life under an assumed identity. Romina's disappearance puzzled many growing up in a household Leonardoed by religious fervor and violence. Romina had endured years of suppression and fear. Fleeing wasn't just an escape. It was a lifeline to freedom. She feared the repercussions of being discovered by her family, knowing all too well the horrors they could unleash upon her, driving her to vanish without a trace, leaving behind a life of oppression, forlorn of uncertain liberty. Enzo nowhere famed was taken in by Araya's sister Lydia, who raised him with love and care. The William home, once filled with laughter and love, stood silent, a stark reminder of the tragic events that had unfolded. Lydia did her best to create a stable environment for Enzo, but the shadow of his parents' tragedy loomed large over his childhood. She often wondered what kind of man Enzo would grow up to be, carrying the weight of such a dark legacy. Romina's escape was not without difficulty. She knew she had to leave Belleville and disappear completely. She had some cash saved up and used it to buy a bus ticket to the nearest big city. From there, she moved from place to place, using different names and taking on various odd jobs to survive. Her once confident and poised demeanor was replaced by constant anxiety and fear of being recognized. Romina found temporary solace in small towns, where she could blend into the background. She dyed her hair, changed her appearance, and avoided making close connections with anyone. Each time she felt someone might recognize her, she moved on. Her life became a series of temporary stays and fleeting moments of peace. She missed Araya deeply and often dreamed about their time together, the passion they shared and the plans they'd made in a small coastal town far from Belleville. Romina finally found a semblance of stability. She took on a job at a local diner, working long hours and keeping to herself. The town was quiet, and the people were friendly but respectful of her privacy. For the first time in months, Romina began to relax and let her guard down a little. She rented a small, modest apartment and tried to build her life, though the fear of being discovered never entirely left her. Enzo, now a teenager, struggled with the burden of his family's dark history. He was a quiet, introspective boy, often lost in thought. Lydia did her best to provide a loving home, but Enzo couldn't escape. The whispers and stares from those who knew about his parents' school was a challenge, with classmates either avoiding him or bullying him for his father's crime. Enzo found solace in books and spent hours at the local library, immersing himself in stories far removed from his reality. Laya encouraged Enzo to pursue his interests, hoping to provide him with a positive outlet. He developed a passion for writing, pouring his emotions and experiences into his stories. His teachers noticed his talent and encouraged him to pursue a career in literature. Despite the darkness of his past, Enzo found hope in the future he could create for himself. One day, while browsing through old family photo albums, Enzo came across a photograph of his parents during happier times. They looked so in love, so full of life. He wondered how everything had gone so wrong. Determined to understand, Enzo began to dig deeper into his family's history. He read old newspaper articles, interviewed people who had known his parents, and pieced together the story of their lives. Enzo's investigation led him to discover the affair between his father and Romina. He was shocked and saddened by the betrayal, but he also felt a strange connection to Romina. He wondered what had happened to her after that fateful night. His search for answers led him to contact Leonardo, the private investigator. Araya had hired Leonardo, now retired, was hesitant to reopen old wounds, but was moved by Enzo's determination. Leonardo shared with Enzo the detailed DET of his investigation, the evidence he had gathered and the events that had transpired. Enzo learned about the confrontation between his mother and Romina, their subsequent affair, and the night his mother was murdered. Enzo felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and a deep need for closure. Determined to find Romina, Enzo followed the trail she had left behind. He visited the places she'd stayed, talked to people who had encountered her, and slowly pieced together her journey. The trail eventually led him to the small coastal town, where Romina was now living. Romina was working her usual shift at the diner when Enzo walked in. She didn't recognize him at first, but as he approached her, she saw a familiar sadness in his eyes. Enzo introduced himself, explaining that he was Araya, and Everett's son. Romina was stunned and filled with a mixture of fear and hope. She invited Enzo to sit down, and they began to talk. Enzo told Romina about his life, his struggles, and his search for answers. Romina in turn shared her story, her escape, and her attempts to rebuild her life. They talked for hours, sharing their pain and their memories of Araya. Romina revealed how deeply she had loved Araya, and how the affair had been a source of both joy and torment. Enzo asked Romina about the night his mother was murdered. Romina recounted the events, her voice trembling with emotion. She told him how Everett had confronted her, his rage and violence, and her desperate escape. Enzo listened intently, feeling a mix of anger towards his father and compassion for Romina. Enzo decided to stay in the coastal town for a while to get to know Romina better and to find some closure for himself. They spent a lot of time together talking about Araya, sharing stories and helping each other heal. Romina found comfort in Enzo's presence, and Enzo felt a sense of connection and understanding that he had never felt before. As time went on, Enzo and Romina's relationship grew stronger. They became a support system for each other, helping to heal the wounds of the past. Enzo continued to write, inspired by the stories Romina had shared and the strength he saw in her. Romina found a new sense of purpose, helping Enzo and finding a way to move forward with her life. Years passed, and Enzo published his first novel, a fictionalized account of his family story. The book received critical acclaim, and Eth was praised for his emotional depth and storytelling ability. He dedicated the book to his mother Araya and to Romina, who had shown him the importance of understanding and forgiveness. Romina, meanwhile, continued to live in the coastal town, finding peace and stability. She stayed in touch with Enzo, visiting him often, and watching him grow into a successful writer. She found solace in the fact that she had been able to help Enzo find closure, and that they had both found a way to move forward. The William murders became a notorious case in Belleville, a cautionary tale of deceit, betrayal, and the devastating consequences of hidden passions. Araya's art gained a lot of fame, her landscapes now imbued with a haunting beauty that drew admirers from afar. Everett's name, once respected, became synonymous with tragedy and madness. Years later, the town still whispered about Romina, the enigmatic secretary who disappeared into the night. Her fate remained one of Belleville's greatest mysteries, a lingering shadow over the tragic tale of the William family. Enzo grew up carrying the weight of his parents' legacy, determined to forge a different path and break free from the cycle of betrayal and violence. In the end, the story of the William murders served as a stark reminder of the fragility of human relationships and the devastating consequences of secrets and lies. It was a tale that would be told for generations, a dark chapter in the history of Belleville that would never be forgotten. Enzo continued to write his works, often exploring themes of love, betrayal, and redemption. His novels resonated with readers, many of whom were unaware of the true story behind his words. Despite the darkness of his past, Enzo found a way to turn his pain into art, creating something beautiful from the ashes of his family's tragedy. In the end, the William murders were more than just a crime. They were a story of love, loss. Thanks for watching True Crime Cases.